All right, so let's just make sure that we're on the same page. High demand and low supply simply equals higher prices. Low demand and high supply of homes equals lower prices. So what does this mean? Demand and supply, when they're equal, equals sustained appreciation. So 2 to 3%, not 20%, not a huge, massive price drop like everyone's talking about. You know, are we in this huge, massive bubble like we saw in 2007, 2008? No. When demand and supply are equal, we see sustained appreciation of 2 to 3% per year. So let's just look at how we come up with demand. Rates on mortgages are irrelevant, and here's why. Housing demand, you can make the argument maybe that it's driven a little bit by rates, but when is the last time you heard a buyer say, I want to buy a house because of the mortgage interest rates? Never happened. People buy houses for reasons outside of what mortgage interest rates are. Now, I know a lot of you in the comments and a lot of the analyticals say, nope, that's just not true. I'm talking about the everyday home buyer, home seller. They're buying and selling homes because of something that is happening in their life. Yes, you can make the argument that investors or some people make a decision to do something based on what the rates are doing. Sure, I can buy into that. But on the spectrum of things, if we're saying the 80-20, it's probably like 95-5. 95% of people buy and sell real estate regardless of mortgage interest rates. What actually drives housing demand are household formations. So if you're looking at the screen, you can see that historically, if we look back over the last 10, 20, 30 years of time, the green line is average, okay? The average number of new households formed. So this is not somebody selling a house and buying a new house because there was no new inventory and there was no new demand. It was a wash, okay? This was a huge takeaway for me that I'm hoping you guys get from this. Housing demand, true demand, comes when there's a new household that's formed. So let me give you a practical example. A new couple who both spouses live at home with their parents, they get married and they say, we want to buy a home. That is a new household that gets formed. That is what we're talking about, okay? So right now, as we sit in this June of 2022, there's about 1.4 million new households being formed. If you look back over the 10, 20, 30 years, you can see, we're just above the average, all right? And this is where demand comes from. So let's look at the supply side of things. So we looked at demand, let's look at supply so you can understand this. The media wants you to believe that, like, look at all this supply coming in the market. We're in deep, deep, deep shit. Look at all the housing starts. And this was the last report that came out, but there's more coming soon. 1.7 million homes are being built. And here's the thing. Supply must come from new homes being built. Okay? I hear a lot of amateur or new real estate agents thinking that supply comes from people selling their homes. Well, if they sell their home and they buy a new home, the supply stayed the same, okay? I hope you get that. Supply comes from new homes being built. So housing starts 1.7 million. About on average, there's 100,000 homes that are destroyed every year. So the new supply is 1.6 million. This is what the media wants you to believe. Okay, well, let's look at what's actually happening. So new housing demand. We have to look at, we talked about the new house, the new households being formed. 1.4 million, okay? And then there's a surplus, okay, of new homes, which I'm going to talk about. And so look at the housing starts completed. There's one thing for a home to start being built, but we all know it's taking these builders a year and a half to build these things. So we have to say how many houses are being completed. Well, that's about 1.3 million. There's 100,000 that get destroyed every year. So the new actual supply is 1.2 million. There's 1.4 million new households being formed. Ladies and gentlemen, we are still in a deficit of 200,000 homes. This is not a surplus. We're still in decline of inventory. Okay, hopefully you understand this. Furthermore, let's take a look at inventory. We are still at record lows. So all the people that say, oh my gosh, inventory is growing, this is just going to crush the market, Brandon, because you talk about supply and demand. Well, the supply is going way up. Demand's going way down because interest rates are, hold on, I'll get to it. Just let me walk you through this. So let's look at the actual housing bubble. When the housing market was the cause of the recession, and there was an actual, in fact, housing bubble, look at inventory and where this was at in 2007. 3.8 million homes in inventory. Well, right now, like we said, there's there's just over 1 million houses out there. And that's not even the whole story, because we're going to talk about, of the 1 million, there aren't 1 million homes actively for sale, because we have to take into consideration actives and pendings, which we're going to talk about in just a second. So historically speaking, why the housing market, or why we're not in a bubble, remember the economics 101, that's why I started this video off like that. So it's all based on supply and demand. Okay, so when we have the supply still at record lows and demand being higher than the amount of homes being built, because there are 1.4 million new households being formed, regardless of interest rates. You see, most people are thinking interest rates is killing the demand. No, it's probably, it's not helping, but it's not killing it either, okay? So let's look at the whole thought around, well, inventory is growing. Yeah, active listings, the number of active listings is growing, okay? Well, that's not the whole story. There's about a little over 600,000 homes that came in the marketplace in June, like they always do. Look at 2017, 2018, 2019, so on and so forth. Why does inventory grow over the spring and summer? Well, it's because, as you know, people move before school starts. So in order to close by August or September, well, really August, so the kids can start in the new school, because let's face it, parents don't want their kids to be moving during the school year. That is why new listings go up during spring and summer months and come down over the fall and the winter. That's why, ladies and gentlemen, it is no more complicated than that. So when you see, oh my gosh, look at all these new listings hitting the market, it's that, okay, time of year, right? And it's the sellers who have been sitting on the sideline seeing, okay, how high is my house going to be worth? Because look at the last 12 months, it went up by 18, 20% in most markets. So all of these people that have a new 20% of wealth, contrary to what the media says, now they're 20% wealthier because they waited for the last 12 months. Now, because they're being smart, they're saying, okay, things will probably level off. Now's the right time to sell. So timing around the time of year, and then timing around the market. So again, but they're like, Brandon, but inventory is growing. Right, we talked about this. Existing home inventory is about 1 million. However, there's 600,000 homes under contract, which means only 400,000 homes are actively for sale for the 1.4 million buyers out there looking for homes. Do you understand it now more clearly why we are not in a bubble? Because we have the demand for homes is still so much greater than the real supply. This is the real story the media is not sharing with you. There isn't 1 million homes for sale. There are 400,000 for sale, because we list 600,000 every single month or so, and then those go under contract. And what's left over of the million is about 400,000 left over. Okay, so we have to look at this historically. When we go back to 2017, active listings, this is the key piece here. Active listings, of the 2 million in inventory, there were 1.5 million homes actively for sale, meaning that they were accessible to buyers. They weren't under contract yet. And if you look at the number of households being formed, like we've been talking about in today's video, that starts to make more sense. Because on average, if we're creating about 1.3 1.4 new households per year, and there's 1.5 million homes for sale, that's even. That's a neutral market. It's a very healthy market. Well, look at where we're at today. I just told you. There are only about 400,000 homes for sale, which is 40% off, essentially, market availability, meaning of the million homes that we talk about in inventory that the media just loves to talk about, you guys, men and women, realtors, there's only 400,000 that are there for the buyers of the 1.4 buyers that are out there shopping for homes. Hopefully that part makes sense. Okay, and again, just to nail this point home, look at the screen, the number of households, just so you guys don't forget, okay? We have, back during that last housing bubble, we had about just over 1 million new households being created. How many homes did we have for sale? Go back, okay, about 3 million. 3 million homes for sale, 1 million buyers. Now, it's pretty much the opposite. We have, if you look at this, we have about 1.3 million buyers, and we only have about 400,000 homes for sale. It's statistically improbable, I would say, to see another housing bubble or a housing crash because of this. And I'm hoping you guys are understanding this. So we have almost 3 million fewer homes than we did back in 2007. So here's the housing forecast, all right? So first off, let's talk about prices. So if you look at the report, June 2022, home prices are arguably the highest they've ever been in history, all right? Average price about $450,000, up 17% year over year. I believe that the housing prices are going to start to level off, all right? They're not going to drop because of what we just talked about for the last 30 minutes. They're going to level off, which is very healthy, okay? From an affordability standpoint and all the things we talked about in today's video, we believe that they are going to level off, not drop, level off. The number of newly listed homes, we talked about this a little bit, but it's because of the time of year and all of these sellers understanding that prices are going to level off, which is why you see the increase of 4.5% of new listings hitting the market year over year. Great. We need more listings because the buyer's saying there's not enough houses for sale. The media sees this and they create this crazy fear-based headline and gets all of your buyers and sellers and a lot of you realtors in a panic, okay? This is the facts. Active listing count, all right? This is what the whole video has been about, okay? So this is just what's available. This is what's available out there. Active listings, 600,000. This is what we have today. All right, yeah, it's up 20% year over year because of what we talked about. All right, so there are more homes available, still not even close to being enough, but there is a little bit more inventory for buyers. Pendings. Okay, pendings are down a little bit. So it's down 16%. So of the active, the 1.2, 1.3 million inventory, 585,000 of those are under contract, leaving the 600,000 for sale. Makes sense. You guys can do the math. We have 1.4 million buyers or so, give or take. Still a huge deficit. You have to put things in context. Days on market. Here is the point. If you're an agent that's been following me for a while, or you're one of my coaching clients, you understand how much I put into days on market as it relates to the real estate market, and here's why. Here's the real story, ladies and gentlemen. I don't care what new listings are doing or sales or inventory. Doesn't matter. The real story is how fast. This is the real picture into supply and demand. How fast are homes selling? Well, days on market, June 2022, putting everything else aside, is lower than it was before. Higher interest rates, more inventory. The days on market is still lower. And this is simply because of our current inventory deficit. So it does not matter. This is why we're protected against a bubble or home prices crashing like the media wants you to believe, well, that's just not the real case when you look behind the curtains and look at the facts. Price reduction. This is another one. This is a key one, all right? So I want to spend a minute or two here. This is the one that the real estate agent community is really having a tough time with. They're like, Brandon, I hear you. All that makes sense. So you're really saying, hey, there's nothing really to be scared of. It's just the market neutralizing. But look at all the price reductions. I mean, we're up 7% year over year in June 2022, meaning more and more sellers are having to reduce their price. What's your take on that? Okay, here's why. It's because prices are leveling off, but the sellers still have the mindset of a market a year ago. So the expectation that they're making decisions off of when they're pressing you on higher price, and the actual market is leveling off, all that's actually happening is sellers are having to reduce their price to reflect the current market, which are great values. They're just not 20% increases like they thought they were last year. So this is now our opportunity to communicate this to the seller to say, well, we can't price like we were pricing last year. You're still going to get an amazing price for your home, but this is just a byproduct of sellers and agents operating from the market in 2021, thinking they can do the same thing when things are softening a bit, and they're having to reduce the price to be more in line with the active market today. It isn't a sign of concern. It's a sign of setting better expectations with sellers and giving the sellers enough time to adjust to the current market, because they're still of the mindset of 20% increases. It's like the chicken or the egg, you know what I mean? You can't have it both ways. And so the reason why we see price reductions skyrocketing is because we got to get the sellers of the mindset like, listen, this isn't the market last year where you could just price it at whatever you want, get 47 offers. This isn't that. Okay, the market's softened a bit. There's a little bit more inventory, so we have to be a little bit smarter with our pricing. So these are just a byproduct of agents having the communication with the seller to say, hey, we have to adjust the price based on the market today. Practical takeaways. Number one, here's what I believe as a takeaway from this video. Inflation will continue to increase in Q3. We are all under the belief that once we get to fall or winter, that we will hopefully see inflation peak, but we still think that inflation is going to continue to go up. Number two, as a result, we believe that the Fed is most likely going to increase rates again in Q3. Now they have a July and a September meeting. We're going to see, but all signs lead us to believe that rates are going to go up because they have to fight inflation, right? That's how they do it. That is the strategy. I gave you all of the historical data on that so you understand how that works. So if inflation goes up, the Fed has to increase those rates to fight inflation so that rates can come back down, slow down spending, which again will lead us into a recession so that we can keep the economy moving. Most likely, we are going to head into a recession. It's most likely. If history tells us, and it's always true, right? History tells us the future. Every time we've been in this situation in this country, with inflation being the way that it is and the Fed raising rates the way that they must to fight the inflation, a recession is not far behind. I don't want this to scare you. All that this means is the Fed is doing this on purpose strategically, okay? They raise the Fed funds rate to slow down spending so that supply can catch up to demand and prices of everything can come down. Isn't that what you all want? And so this doesn't mean home prices drop. We talked about this. Historically speaking, home prices actually appreciate 2, 3, 4% during a recession. Number 4, home prices, like I've said many times in this video, will most likely level off, but they're not going to drop. It's not like we saw in 07, 08 because of all the reasons I gave you. Number 5, we believe inventory will increase lightly, all right? It's going to increase a little bit to get us back to hopefully more of a neutral market where the amount of homes for sale is closer to the number of buyers, because right now that discrepancy, we're at such a deficit. Next, demand. We believe demand will drop slightly as a result of higher mortgage interest rates, okay? But it's still a lot higher, okay? So remember, demand doesn't all come from mortgage interest rates, but because of the higher interest rates, we'll see demand drop a little bit. But remember, there's still 1.4 million new homeowners coming into the marketplace, new households being formed. We don't have that many homes being built, so we're still at a deficit. We believe homes will still sell relatively quickly. We saw that the days on market is actually lower. That'll probably go up a little bit. We'll see homes probably not sell as fast as we have in the past, just because as a result of what we're seeing in the market. And sellers might only get 1 or 2 offers now instead of getting 5 or 6. It's okay. They're still going to get a great price for their home. It just might take a little bit longer with less offers. But how many offers do they need to sell the house? Oh, that's right, 1. It's our job as real estate professionals to communicate this with sellers. Next, sellers need to get their homes on the market right now, before August, while buyer demand stays high, before school starts. Okay, I told you why the market in spring of new listings and why transactions are so high during the summer. It's because mainly people are trying to transact while kids are out of school. Because we see every single year, I make a video on it every year, September is the slowest month of the year. It's when all the kids go back in school. All the buyers stop completely. So all of your sellers, the takeaway, the practical takeaway for you and your sellers is we must act now. It is July, the 4th of July. We've got to get the house on the market. We've got to get showings happening so we can accept an offer hopefully in the next couple of weeks, go under contract, be closed in August for our greatest likelihood to sell the property. So that is your June 2022 housing market update. My hope is that you have great takeaways, that you learned a lot. Let me know what questions you have. And I'm planning on doing these every single month moving forward. I hope that this was of value. And if you got value, love to see you subscribe. If you stop getting value from my channel, you can always unsubscribe later. And I appreciate the time and attention today. I know it was a long one, but we'll see you guys in another video very soon. Thank you guys so much for watching.